Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at the Goldsmith from Cantrell A Priori and produced by the Gentleman Wake. In the 1400s, Johannes Guttenberg worked as a printer in Mainz, Germany, but he was far from a simple printer. He was a craftsman and inventor who brought the movable type printing press to Europe, and with it, the printed word to the masses like never before. He's hailed as one of the most influential figures in human history, and he's the subject of the first deck in the Cantrell A Priori line, Goldsmith. The name of the deck refers to Gutenberg's early training when his parents worked in a mint, even securing the rights to the mint itself. Gutenberg himself trained as a metalworker and a goldsmith, skills that he would later put to use as he revolutionized the printing press. While there's not a lot of contemporary work to be found on Guttenberg, Kevin Cantrell, in designing the deck, did some extensive research to explore some of the different angles of the man and bring him to life in the deck. And the pair of decks that you see here are the first pair in a new series of signature decks that Kevin will be designing across a whole variety of different subjects, with new pre-orders for decks coming every 3 months on the successive designs. So if you like what you see in this review, you'll definitely want to be ready for May 23rd when the decks will go on sale on the Gentleman Wake site, link down in the description. Now, this beautiful pair of decks that you see is going to be paired with a 24-karat gold-plated coin and a walnut 2-deck case from the fantastic Carat Case Creations. It should be an amazing package and something you won't want to miss, so be ready for that. But first, let's check these decks out, starting with the Tux. Two different versions. You have the black and the white editions of the deck, both very similar in the design work. In fact, the same foil work all the way through. Only difference on these is the color of the stock that it's printed on. For me personally, I like the black version a little bit better. I think it highlights the details a little bit better, but they're a nice pair and kind of, different contrast depending on your flavor. But looking more closely at the details, it is a fantastic letterpress and foil deck. For a deck named Goldsmith, you'd expect there to be tons of gold foil, and this one doesn't disappoint. Also pairing it with this teal colored foil as well. It's a great combo, looks great paired with the black. And the scene in the middle, really interesting and kind of ornate scene. This one, of course, is an image of the printing press, that famed printing press in the background, as Gutenberg and one of his assistants work late into the night. You can see him there, maybe checking out one of the papers that came hot off the press. Then you have Gutenberg credited on the banner at the top, and then the Goldsmith in that really ornate font at the bottom. Beautiful details all the way around, the kind of floral inspired elements forming the pattern border around it. Really nicely done, and the foiling and embossing on this is impeccable, just really nicely done. So you turn to the sides. On one side, of course, Gutenberg was most known for his books, and so you have a book spine on one side, giving the name of the book, the Goldsmith, and then mentioning the approximate years when Gutenberg worked, so from 1400 to 1468. On the other side, this has some copy here for the Goldsmith premium playing cards. Bottom has some ad copy for Kevin Cantrell, and of course mentions the Gentleman Wake as well. And then on the top here, you can see piles of books and different elements from the printing presses themselves. And on here, you can see some words that can be found inside the original Gutenberg Bible. It says, "It is a press from which shall flow an inexhaustible streams through it." Just kind of a cool little nod there to the significance that he already knew was going to be there with the press, but really cool scene there on the top. And then the back here gives you a little preview of the back design of the cards. The coins here attribute to Gutenberg's beginnings as a goldsmith and his parents' work at the mint. But beautiful look at this one. We'll look more at the details in a second. And like I said, the white deck, same details, just with the white instead of the black. So you got to open up the inner flap here. Another look at the printing press with Gutenberg credited around the edge. Lots of kind of vine work filling in all the details there. And then on the inside, you get the Cantrell A Priori. That's Kevin Cantrell's sort of new luxury design. So there's the logo for that, or this sort of monogram. And then these right here, a couple of the letters that you might find used in the press. So 2 individual letters stacked up there. Kind of a cool touch. And of course, for a Goldsmith deck, the decks themselves are going to be brilliantly gilded. You can see that gold gilding there, nice mirror finish to it, and a great pairing with the theme overall. And you do get some nice interior printing on the deck as well, or on the tuck box, with some really ornate pattern all the way through the tuck box. Just a really impressive tuck box and a great pair of them as well. But that's the tuck box, and of course, we're gonna move on and check out the cards. And to kick things off, we'll take a look at the back designs of the two cards. So we have the black version and the white version, of course, and a beautiful mixture of the gold foils, very liberally used on this one, of course, in keeping with the theme of the deck. Little accents of that light blue, and then all of it against the black or the white, respectively. It's an impressive bit of foiling, lots of really fine details in this one, but all of them come out pretty well. I will say, small knock, that linen finish that Cartamundi uses on their cards tends to kind of wash out some of the details, and it's a bit of a shame because once you get in close and take a look at it, like look at the words here in the center, just how fine of detail they're able to get and how precise the foil is. Just really impressively done. And the design on these, really nice. Of course, for the Goldsmith deck, we're going to pay tribute to Guttenberg's origins in the mint. And so you have a coin there at the top and the bottom. It's a Guttenberg coin there, and you can see his profile there. And then around the edge, you get Gensfleisch, which was actually part of Guttenberg's name, and then 50 guilders. So the guilder was the coin of the day. Really ornate details all the way through. You can see just different patterns and borders, the flowers in the corners. Really nicely done. A great pair of backs, and while I like the black tuck box better, I will say on the back design here, the white one really stands out to me, but both of them look fantastic. All right, so on to the faces, and we start off with the Jokers. The entire deck really delves into the life and work of Guttenberg in a creative way, seeking out some stories along the way that are pulled from Kevin Cantrell's extensive reading on the man. And the images on the Jokers tell one of the most bizarre and intriguing of all of those tales with the creation of pilgrim mirrors. So as the story went, back in 1439, Guttenberg had this crazy money-making idea. He took on a huge loan to make these polished metal mirrors to sell to pilgrims who were visiting to view Emperor Charlemagne's traveling collection of holy relics. It was believed that these mirrors would be able to capture the light that was reflected off of the relics and then store that light up for future blessings. The first of the two Jokers is a beautifully captured scene, all done in that gold foil and the pale blue. And in the center here, you can see the pilgrim mirror itself. It was this metal badge that was made up. And then right in the center was an area to hold the mirror itself. So you could kind of hold that up to the relics as they pass by. It's a beautiful, kind of bizarre piece of history. And then all of it surrounded with tons of ornate details in keeping with the theme of the deck. Of course, you get the books across the bottom, a nod to Guttenberg's future influence, and then the beautiful filigree around it, this explosion of kind of plant-inspired work, beautifully done around the edges. But that wasn't the entire story. The second Joker tells the second, more tragic half of the story. So after investing all this capital to get these pilgrim mirrors made, the relic viewing event had to be completely scrapped in town in an effort to combat the spreading plague. And so this Joker depicts that devastation that invaded Europe at the time. You can see the plague written at the top. And at that time, they were literally carting out dead bodies in the street. You can see that happening here in the scene in the center. Now, of course, this entire event was also financially devastating to Guttenberg at the time, and he lost his entire investment in the venture. So kind of a bizarre story told across the two Jokers, but a really interesting one. And just so nicely done with that gold foil. And then moving on. So if you've never seen a Kevin Cantrell design, make sure not to sleep on the aces or the number cards. They're always packed with some fascinating details, and these, no exception. So we start off with the ace of spades that features that large oversized pip. This is definitely the power ace of the deck with the name of the deck, the Goldsmith, presented by Gentleman Wake, and then Cantrell mentioned there at the top. And then the scene in the center, of course, is a gold adorned pip highlighting the printing press that changed the world. You can see the array of books across the bottom that are sort of a testament to that impact. So for example, on one side you have your 42 line, that's a reference to the 42 line Bible. So it was named that because the pages had 42 lines to align with the capabilities of the printing press. But that Bible was the one that sort of put Gutenberg on the map. And then in the center, it's a little bit hard to read, but there's a book here, and it's opened up to a page with a quote that reads, "Like a star, it shall scatter the darkness of ignorance to shine." Fitting words that are actually written in the Gutenberg Bible. So very cool look on the Ace of Spades. The Ace of Hearts continues that tribute, this time celebrating the simple inks that were used in the process. You can see the mention of ink here, and then these two cloth-covered balls were the bits that were actually used to stamp the ink onto the press so that paper could be pressed onto it. And then another book here with another powerful quote, this one coming from another printer much later in life, Benjamin Franklin. It says, "Give me 26 soldiers of lead and I will conquer the world." So a reference to the 26 letters that could be used in a printing press and then combined to form words that would change the world. So kind of a cool sentiment in that one. And then next up we have another one. This one with looking at the actual soldiers, so to speak, themselves. This one with Goldsmith, Johannes Guttenberg written out. So you can almost imagine the blanks that were put into place to actually form these, and you can see them here. And so in a classic printing press, they would like put the paper over the top with the ink on it and then press the letters into it. But kind of a cool testament there on the Ace of Diamonds. And then finally the Ace of Clubs with another nod to those pilgrim mirrors. You can see the kind of ornate details on the three leaves of the club pip, and then in the center there, that mirror that would be used as part of the Holy Relic. And then, of course, another nod to the goldsmithing origins with the coin there at the top. So beautiful look to that one. The number cards are also really nicely done. I love the number cards and the pips that Cantrell does. He always does a couple of things that I love. He always does ornate details or even entire scenes inside of the pips, and then fills in the empty space with some of these extra little emblems and icons. And these are some of the most ornate and complete that I think he's ever done. The pip and index in the corner as well, nice and small, very fine, and of course adorned with that gold foil as well. But as you look through the numbers, so on the spades here, we have the printing press in the center, and then the books that came off of it as the extra elements. And then the diamond pips, yet again, use those letters there spelling out Goldsmith, just like you would find on a printing press. Love the accents of the blue here on these. And then these are a couple of the individual letters that are used to fill in some of the empty space. Clubs, of course, again, a nod to that, to the pilgrim mirrors. So you can see the mirror relics there, along with the ornate pips. And then finally, the hearts, which go back to the inks. And so you can see a book there in the center, and then those cloth-covered balls that were used to stamp the inks. Beautifully done set of pips, all of them combining to form just a fantastic set of cards. You know, so many decks don't do much with the pips and kind of keep those more standard, but I love that Cantrell puts that ornate detail into every single card. But we still have the courts to go. At last, my favorite part of any deck, the characters that make it up. And for this one, we're going to walk through some of the significant characters that surrounded Gutenberg's life and times. And it all starts with Johannes himself as the King of Spades. The styling on these pulls in some classic elements, things like the weapons and things like that from more standard court cards. But of course, this one is fully custom from the ground up. Wonderful artwork all the way through. And of course, just like everything else in the deck, the foil accents are liberal as expected. Tons of gold on these. And the embellishments throughout are just a beautiful highlight. You get the pattern backgrounds, the intricate details all over the clothing, just really nicely done. And the characters, I love the illustration style on these. Just kind of a unique feel to it that really sort of captures that vintage style to the deck overall. Love the pips that are brought forward from the number cards, and of course still highlighted in that gold, and the intricate details throughout. And the rest of the deck continues on with some of those other characters in Gutenberg's life, like the Queen of Spades here. So this is his mother, Elsa Wirich. obviously significant in his own life. And then the Queen of Clubs, this is one of the more obscure characters. This is a woman named Beildeck. She was the wife in a family that Guttenberg actually boarded with while he was living in Strasbourg. Definitely an obscure character choice, but I love the depth of character selection rather than just going with generic figures on the courts that maybe didn't mean anything. So kind of a cool pull of this one. And then you also have some of the courts depicting monarchs of the day, like the King and Queen of Diamonds here that depict the Holy Roman Emperor at the time. This is Frederick III, as well as his wife, the Empress Eleanor. It's definitely a fitting choice. The King of Diamonds usually is depicted holding this holy imperial orb, which is sort of a symbol of his office. And so bringing that forward on the King of Diamonds for this deck, kind of a nice and cool choice. I love, by the way, on the blue cards, kind of bring in that much heavier use of the blue accent on the traditionally red cards of the diamonds and the hearts. All right, so moving on to one of the hearts. So the next few cards get into some of the more, I guess I'll call them troubled parts of Guttenberg's life that's known, mostly from actually lawsuits that he was involved in while he was doing his work. And the Queen of Hearts, this is a woman named Edelin, who Guttenberg was supposedly engaged to before trying to break it off, which apparently back then, if you ended an engagement, it was actually something you could sue somebody over. And so she actually sued him in court. And that's how we know about her, just mentioned in that lawsuit. And then next up is the King of Hearts. This is probably the most infamous character in Guttenberg's life. This was actually his business partner initially. His name is Johann Fust. Fust was a fellow printer, and they actually worked together. Fust loaned him money so that he could use it to put together his printing press. But eventually he turned on his partner, sued him over some unpaid loans, and ultimately took over the entire Guttenberg business for himself. So, like I said, a bit of a infamous character, not necessarily the happiest character in his life, but definitely a significant one there with Fust on the King of Hearts. And in a sad yet, I guess, comforting footnote, Guttenberg actually found himself effectively bankrupt, but an archbishop named Adolphus, you can see him here on the King of Clubs, came to the rescue, supplied Guttenberg with an annual stipend, an honorary title that allowed him to live out his life. And so there's Adolphus on the King of Clubs. And then the last four courts, the jacks, take us into the print shop itself, and only one of the four actually depicts a real person. Peter Schoeffer is the Jack of Clubs, and he was an apprentice and one of the technicians in Guttenberg's shop. He actually created some of the very first typefaces, and he's shown here holding one of his most famous books. This was a scientific book called Herbarius Latinus. So a Latin textbook that included some beautiful illustrations, some plants and things like that. And then the final three jacks represent some of the jobs in a typical print shop of the day. So the Jack of Diamonds here, this is a punch cutter. So he would, and you can see some of his tools of his trade here in his hands, but he would be the one who would cut out the individual master copies of the letters that were eventually stamped and cast into the final, what were called sorts, that were actually used in the typesetting process. And then speaking of that, the Jack of Spades, this is the typesetter himself. So he would grab the sorts, those individual letters. He would rack them up on one of these type of tools here. You can see in his hand, called composing sticks. And then he would rack them all up there and then align them on the press to be ready to be inked and printed. And then, of course, they do have to be inked. And so the Jack of Hearts here represents the last of them, the press inker. You can see this right here was like a giant ball covered in cloth. He would mash that in the ink and then use that to stamp all over the letters, put the paper over the top, and finally press in the final words. So kind of a cool nod to some of the roles that were played in the print shop as the last three jacks. And that's the last of the courts and the end of our little preview of the Goldsmith deck. This is just a fantastic deck and a great way to showcase the talents of Kevin Cantrell as a designer. Just amazing work. And if, like me, you're ready to pre-order these, just a couple days to go. These beautiful decks are going to be on pre-sale May 23rd on the Gentleman Wake. That's going to be, like I said before, a 2-deck set with a coin and wooden case. And just 1,000 of them are going to be available. So be quick and be ready. Can't wait to check these out. Kudos to Kevin Cantrell, and can't wait to see what other decks are going to be available in the Cantrell A Priori line. Special thanks to Kevin and to the Gentleman Wake for sending me these decks so that I could preview them with you on the channel, and hope you guys are going to join me on the 23rd in picking these up. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.